I would like to make a personal video for the viewers, present and future. As of now, from a philosophical standpoint, I know myself to be what Hegel calls the negative, and what he also calls reason, which is the singular consciousness which knows that the whole of reality is itself, in a way. And this knowledge implies many things, including the fact that someday, believe it or not, my videos will be famous. And another reason why it will be so, it's simply because of the logical unity of intensity and extension. What is intense is also extended, and it means that a thinker like Hegel, who has had very profound, very deep, or very elevated thoughts, must, out of logical necessity, become very famous and widespread. And my channel mainly consists in commenting Hegel, and it is implied in the concept of Hegel's thought that he will become the most famous thinker in the world, and the only thinker who will be more well known than Hegel will be God, because God is the ultimate profound thinker. But I have, so that you, whoever you are, might understand me better, I have a conflict within me, because I guess that I'm a Hegelian, and Hegel keeps repeating that, in his view, the individual, the empirical self, if you will, is worthless. It's irrelevant. It's totally unimportant. But at the same time, he says that consciousness, which exists at first through the mediation of individual minds, can only understand what is within its own experience. So, Hegel also says that the universal particularizes itself and singularizes itself. So it is in the concept of the concept, which is the universal, to become singular. So Hegel contradicts himself. And this is an opportunity for making reflections and thoughts about epistemology, the theory of knowledge. Is the autobiography of a scientist, or a politician, or a philosopher important if one wants to understand the actions of the man or the woman, but mostly the man, who performed these actions? For instance, Hegel is known for supposedly having said that Napoleon was world spirit on horseback. So if it really happened, which is kind of doubtful, but let us suppose that it happened, what Hegel saw when he looked at Napoleon was not a Frenchman on a horseback. It was world spirit made manifest, because Napoleon embodied in a single individual the ideas of the French Revolution, which were a spiritual breakthrough, so to speak, which were themselves the product of the Enlightenment, the Age of Reason, the Scientific Revolution, and so on and so forth. And Napoleon was just the historical agent whose purpose was to bring forth a new world of spirit in the realm of legislation and law. That was the view of Hegel. So when Hegel looked at Napoleon, he saw world spirit concentrated on an individual. So in Hegel's view, studying the life of Napoleon the man to look in his psychology whether or not he was ambitious or greedy, or what were his personal motives. For Hegel, this is completely irrelevant. A psychological view of history, for Hegel, is totally beyond. I don't have the. You completely misses the point if you adopt a psychological view of history, according to Hegel. So to know the personal history of Napoleon or of Julius Caesar or of Hitler is irrelevant in the view of Hegel. I know that there have been books written about Hitler to show whether he was a sexual pervert. Is this some sort of sexual perversion which influenced Hitler in promoting his ideas, or was he his relationship with his father, his failure as a painter? Is it because he resented the academia for having rejected his paintings? Are these reasons which pushed him to become the man that we know? In the view of Hegel, these questions are irrelevant. Julius Caesar, he had psychological determinations. He was ambitious. He was driven by the will to be admired and to dominate the other members of the Roman aristocracy. But for Hegel, Caesar was a moment in the development of world spirit, and it embodied the moment when the Roman Republic had exhausted its possibility and had to turn into another stage of spirit, which was the birth of the empire. So, yeah, that's the view of Hegel. To summarize, I could say that in this view, the personal story of a scientist or a politician or a philosopher or a military leader or even a religious man is irrelevant. Only the idea, in a Hegelian sense, the concept, the spirit is important. Only the universal, not the particular, only the universal is what is important in the view of Hegel. Okay, now I will talk about my personal experience, to contradict Hegel maybe. The world, as I envision it, is a field of information. And I, as an individual, I am constantly receiving informations from all over the world. Through feelings, I am constantly informed about my inner feelings, which are physical and emotional. When I'm hungry, it's a feeling of hunger. When I feel bad, it's a feeling of discomfort. So they are not really strictly similar, but there is a connection between chemical determinations of the body and the emotions that we associate with them. So feelings and emotions, the distinction is not very clear. I know that there have been books written to explain that they are not the same, but I am constantly informed about the world by my inner feelings. I do not think about my feelings constantly, but I know that I am constantly feeling the fact that I exist, the feeling of existence, so to speak. I am constantly informed by sensation, which is a perception of an external world. I see colors, shapes. I feel, from an external standpoint, the temperature of the world, whether it's hot or cold. So I am constantly informed by the presence of an external world that I perceive as having shaped, colors, size. So yeah. Then I have a memory. I can think about my past experiences and reflect upon them. I have also representation and imagination. I can imagine what the future will be by extrapolating from the present and past data. I can extract myself, so to speak, from the present moment and imagine what the future will be like. So I have these faculties. And then I have consciousness in the sense of a moral consciousness. I am constantly informed by God, I guess, whether my actions are morally good or morally bad. I have an inner compass, so to speak, in the sense that there are actions that I perform which do not trigger any moral response in me. When I drink a glass of water, it's neither good nor bad. Not at this moment, it's neither good nor bad. But most of my actions, I think about them, and there are actions that I know are wrong and bad, and others that I know are good and just. So I am constantly struggling within myself because I have these notions of good and bad, good and evil, right and wrong within me, and I try to act justly and to do the right thing, but it's so difficult. It's a constant struggle against myself, against my lower tendencies. It's exhausting and yeah. And finally, I have thoughts which are immaterial, non-sensuous representations, and I constantly think about the world, about myself, and I constantly try, not constantly, but when I'm inspired, I try to transform all the previous informations that I have listed into thoughts, to categorize, to extract the logical aspect of these information into thought. Yeah. So, I try to put order into the infinite flow of information that is confronting me, so to speak. Then about my personal psychology. I enjoy working. By working, I can only mean what I understand by my personal experience. It's to think, to write, to share knowledge, to organize, to solve problems. So it's an intellectual work. I enjoy working and being intellectually stimulated. And a part of me believes that this kind of work is not real work, because work, in order to be real work, it must contain an unpleasant aspect within itself. So if you enjoy your work, in my view, a part of me believes that you're not a real worker. And then I had an idea. I tried to extract a universal idea out of my personal experience. If all the people who enjoy their work in society, if they stopped working, society would collapse. I don't know what the percentage is in Western societies, the number of people who take enjoyment in their work. I guess that there are many. Work is not always fun and pleasant, and it can be boring and annoying, but there are people who enjoy doing what they do. A teacher usually enjoys being with his student. A baker enjoys partly producing bread. It can be repetitive and boring, but yes, so that's very difficult. A scholar usually enjoys writing books and teaching classes. A policeman enjoy bringing order and peace to civil society. So it's very conflicting. And the other idea is that if all the people who do not enjoy their work, the people in the supermarkets, the workers in the factories, those who clean, the cleaning ladies and so on and so forth, if all these people stop working, society would collapse also. So in order to maintain a relative balance, society, from the point of view of economic and sociological determinations, everyone must work whether they enjoy or do not enjoy their work. So that's a thought that I had. So the question is work a burden or a gift? It depends on your perspective. If a politician, if you told him you are not allowed to work anymore, to do politics, many politicians would feel desperate and very sad. And if a worker factor, if you told him, you don't need to work anymore, you can go on holiday, he would enjoy it. And work is ambiguous because I know that when people reach the retirement age, in the Western countries at least, many of them feel empty suddenly. They feel like my job and my work was kind of boring maybe, but now that I am without employment, life is so empty. And there are people who die very shortly after they have retired, as if the lack of work had killed them, so to speak. They feel that they become useless. Suddenly they have no relationship with their colleagues anymore. They feel that they have lost a sense of belonging in society. They feel a sense of worthlessness. So retirement can be a blessing, but also a curse. And so work is ambiguous. And it is said in the Bible that it is a punishment that God imposed upon mankind because of the original sin. But in modern developed societies, there are many people who find relative fulfillment in their work. So, yeah. The way I organize my days. My days are too short. I wish that they lasted longer than 24 hours, but unfortunately that's how things are. I try not to sleep too much, but when I don't sleep enough, I am tired and unproductive. So not sleeping enough is counterproductive. I used to drink energy drinks, but I don't want to become dependent on chemicals, so I stopped, and I want my will to replace chemicals. I want my will to become stronger than chemicals. I don't know if that's possible, but that's what I do. And then about the idea of natural sleep. If you have an exhausting day in the good sense, in the sense that you have exhausted and used your energy, not over-exhausted, but you have used your energy in a measured way, you will find natural sleep. You will not need chemicals. You will not need artificial sleeping pills. You will find rest and peace in your sleep because your day will have been fulfilled. And I don't know, but I guess that in the West, there are not many people who can find a natural, relaxing, restoring, healthy sleep because their schedule in the day is not balanced. So, yeah. Now, so like I said, there are informations everywhere constantly, and I feel overwhelmed by the amount of information. But sometimes I am inspired, namely I have many ideas, which I consider to be good ideas, I guess. And I feel the need to share these ideas. And a part of me wished that I were a scholar and that I could spend my day reading books and accumulating data and synthesizing knowledge and writing books and sharing. So a part of me wished that I were a scholar, but I also know, because of this constant conflict between good and evil within me, that I must renounce knowledge, which is what I love the most. But I must renounce what I love, and I must try to be just the link to share my view of the totality and to let others draw inspiration from my ideas, from my perspective, and to let them produce their own knowledge. So I must learn to let go of what I love, and it's very difficult. And I am constantly tempted. And for me, being in a library, and my apartment is a library, basically there are books everywhere, is like a child in a candy shop or in a toy store, or a woman, sorry for the prejudice, but like a woman in a clothes shop or in a makeup or a beauty shop. So the temptations are everywhere. And for me, being in a library is a constant temptation because I want to read books, I want to understand, I want to be enlightened, I want to enlighten others, I want to read and to understand, and I must renounce this temptation and focus on the essential, so to speak, and just share the knowledge which will enable others to be enlightened. So I know what is good. I see the good. Am I capable of doing the good, knowing that I am the negative? I don't know, but at least I have the consciousness of what is right, and I must renounce my own temptation. I must struggle against myself. I must give up what I love. And it is so difficult. So yeah. And then I will conclude by a view of temptation precisely. A part of me is fundamentally Christian, whether I like it or not. A part of me is Protestant, radical Christian. And there are moments in my empirical life when I feel guilt and shame and remorse and degradation for eating and drinking and for existing. There's a part of me which believes that my very existence is evil, and that I am guilty of existing. And these fundamentalist Christians who believe that every temptation of the flesh, if you eat when you're hungry, if you drink when you're thirsty, if you just think about sex by watching a beautiful woman, if just the thought crosses your mind, you are already being tempted by the devil, and this is a temptation of the flesh, and you have to mortify yourself for having had these thoughts, and then God will punish you, and you can only be saved by God's grace, and whatever you do, you are a sinner. These kind of ideas, they cross my mind. I feel guilty sometimes just because I exist. And that's difficult. And I will conclude by saying that I have made a plan, an order, to order my ideas. And I try to follow the plan and not let myself be distracted. But when brilliant ideas, or I think they are brilliant, maybe I'm wrong, but when brilliant ideas pop into my mind, I feel the need to share them with others, which disrupts the plan. And there is a will within me to enlighten others and to be admired by others. There's this will in me. And this is caused by pride. And pride is the root of all evil, and it's the devil who is proud. So I feel guilty for wishing to enlighten others. So light becomes a source of shame and guilt in me. So I am becoming insane. And I try to keep my sanity by following the plan. But it's difficult. And that's what I had to say. So, yeah.